Alright, so we got the 263 spoilers, and we're seeing the conclusion of Sukuna versus Yuta in Gojo's body, but also we're seeing Yuji is now able to target the barrier between Sukuna and Megumi's souls using Cleave. Yeah, that's right, we'll get into that. And also, Hana Kurusu in Angel is showing up again and blasting Sukuna for I think the third time with Jacob's ladder. I know this is a pretty wild chapter, so let's just get right into it. So it begins with Unlimited Void's domain barrier getting shattered. Sukuna's skin is torn out as he lands out of the barrier, and he says even his Malevolent Shrine's barrier was destroyed simultaneously. Sukuna says he pulled it off. Even if purple is his ultimate technique, he's still not used to using it. So yeah, this is coming off of the previous chapter where we saw Yuta somehow brought this tape recorder into the domain, but it also had Inumaki's cursed speech on there, which froze Sukuna, and then he fired off a hollow purple at him, and we're seeing what happened, and, not really that much. I mean, he did hurt Sukuna, and also the barrier of the domain expansion shattered, which is actually an important plot point in this chapter. Todo and Yuji immediately spring into action alongside Yuta. Todo asks Yuta to spam as many purples as he can once he recovers the curse technique and to not worry about them getting caught in the crossfire because he can avoid it using Boogie Woogie. No reaction from Yuji towards Yuta using Gojo's body. He's locked in. Narrator reveals that after using his domain, Sukuna is once again in a state where it's difficult for him to use his curse technique. But in the next moment, Yuta immediately falls down, indicating that Kenjaku's curse technique has stopped. The narrator says that Kenny's curse technique, which Yuta had copied, got burnt out once the domain broke. So even before 5 minutes could pass, Kenny's curse technique got halted. Wow, so that's pretty wild. I didn't even think about that. I just assumed that Limitless would be burnt out after Yuta used his domain expansion, but no, it was Kenjaku's curse technique for some reason. Gege seems to like to do that stuff where it's you think one thing is going to happen with his rules that he imposed on the world, but another thing happens instead. Like with how Higuruma's domain expansion works with what he can take from you with confiscation, and how it worked differently between Yuji and Sukuna. It's almost like it's a game or something. Todo notices Yuta reaching his limit and admires Sukuna for not loosening up his offense. Todo says, I guess that's why they call him the King of Curses. Noticing Todo being distracted, Sukuna immediately lands a black flash on him. Wow, Todo getting hit with a black flash by Sukuna here. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Raycon, which I'm sure you've heard about by now. And if you've been wanting to check them out, now is the best time because they just released their upgraded models that I have really been liking. They have this great ergonomic design with multi-point connectivity, with super simple tap functions, along with active noise cancellation, a 32-hour battery life, as well as being weatherproof, dustproof, and sweat resistant. And they also come in a bunch of awesome colors. My favorite is black, of course. They also just released these really cool protective cases. I got the concrete one, and it's just a nice little finish to your case to protect it from getting scratched. I use my Raycons pretty much every single day, whether I'm working out, doing chores, studying, or just chilling. I love these things. So guys, click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/Zhoniin to get 15% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. Thanks, guys. Sukuna notices Yuji reaching towards him and turns around to defend himself, but Todo instantly teleports Yuji behind Sukuna. Todo says he's not done yet. Thanks to Todo sending him in a blind spot, Yuji successfully lands some punches on Sukuna's face. Todo is slapping the Vibra Slap on his head to activate Boogie Woogie. Yeah, Todo lost piece of the Vibra Slap, that clanking part. And now he's just hitting his head with it to activate it. I guess that's good enough for the conditions that he set with his binding vow. Todo says, Akotsu, that bundle of cursed energy, he still has shards of the barrier floating around. Until these shards disappear, there's no greater stage on which Boogie Woogie can shine. Even Yuta is not done yet. So that's really cool. So when we see domain expansions like break or deactivate or whatever, it's usually depicted as them like shattering like glass. And it's never really gone any further than that until now. So the shards of glass, I guess you could say, the shards of the domain expansion are tangibly still a thing in this world. So Todo can activate Boogie Woogie using them as a thing to be switched with. And there's possibly like hundreds of thousands or millions of shards. He just has like near infinite possibilities to switch in and out with. And that's actually what happens. Like in the following sequence, we just see Yuji just destroying Sukuna by teleporting all over the place in between the shards. Yuji hits Sukuna with Dismantle perfectly at the barrier between Sukuna and Megumi's soul. Yuji says, "I'll do it as many times as it takes. Wake up, Fushiguro." Sukuna is shocked as he realizes Yuji can selectively choose the target of his technique. Yuji is firing Dismantle after Dismantle directly at the barrier between Sukuna and Megumi's soul. So that's really cool. So Yuji, who is like vastly improving on the fly, I guess from the experience in this battle, can now directly target the barrier between Sukuna and Megumi's soul the way that he was doing it with his punches. Now he can do it with Cleave. I wonder if Sukuna could do this, like target a soul or something like that with Cleave and Dismantle instead of having them like operate in the third dimensional world or whatever. It's not exactly breaking it, but it's still doing a lot of damage. Sukuna backs away as he thinks that if he continues taking those blows, he won't be able to maintain his body and lose. Sukuna throws up some of his fingers and consumes them again. This is one of the wildest parts in this chapter. Sukuna actually throws up his fingers from getting beat down here so bad with that Cleave. I didn't know that you could do this, because this implies that they're kind of just always sitting in your stomach, never being digested. So does that mean that like Yuji for the longest time just had an undigested Sukuna finger in his stomach? Oh, and I'm sure Gege was inspired by the whole Gohan Super Saiyan 2 punching Perfect Cell in the stomach and then he like throws up the androids. It's gotta be an homage to that, right? Because it looks so similar, and I guess it is very similar just narratively wise as well, since the fingers are kind of just like, androids for Cell to become perfect or whatever. But I like this. Sukuna says Yuji has used a binding vow that will ensure that Yuji strikes will more effectively tear away Sukuna's soul from Megumi's body. Alright, so it's about time that Yuji starts abusing the binding vow system, which is broken. Yuji cuts down the pillar on which Sukuna was standing on and tries to land a punch, but Sukuna dodges it midair and strikes Yuji back. Sukuna says if I simply avoid those blows, they'll have no other moves as effective. Todo says if my spare Vibra Slap isn't recognized as my left hand, it won't function. Just one more time. Todo slaps his Vibra Slap, but there was no swap. Sukuna grins as he prepares to face Yuji, but Todo once again uses his Vibra Slap. It's Hana Kurusu with Angel's Curse technique that got swapped this time, and she directly above Sukuna's head. Todo's Vibra Slap breaks as it does its job for the final time, and the narrator says that through the use of a binding vow, Todo's curse technique range has been extended. Alright, Hana Kurusu randomly brought back in here with a Boogie Woogie, swapping with a shard of the domain expansion. We didn't know that she was going to be in here, but we assumed that, she still kind of had to be used since she was still alive. Chapter ends with Hana blasting Angel's maximum output Jacob's Ladder technique. So, yeah, it looks like this might be the end of Sukuna. I especially think so because Gege recently stated in, I guess at his art exhibit in Shibuya or whatever, or like some kind of interview came out. I'll go over it more in my chapter review tomorrow, but he essentially said that the Shinjuku Showdown, which is the thing that we're going through right now, is the end, or the climax of the manga or whatever. I don't know, but it seems like, this might be the end of Sukuna. I guess Yuji needs to get the final blow, but it's not looking too good for him since, Jacob's Ladder is like the ultimate move to take him down, essentially. But like I said, I'll go over way more of the chapter in my review tomorrow, so subscribe for that if you haven't already. And like the video if you liked it, and let me hear what you got to say in the comments. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.